Heckles, apologies and cheers summed up President Cyril Ramaphosa's address at the funeral service of the late Robert Mugabe. Ramaphosa attended the service along with other world leaders. He was booed when he took to the podium, this after weeks of xenophobic violence in South Africa, and later he was applauded when he apologized for the attacks on foreign nationals. Mugabe will be laid to rest in about 30 days at the Heroes Acre in Harare.
Final tribute for one of Africa's leaders who was loved by some and loathed by others. Leaders, mainly from the continent, praising his role in liberating Africa. When it was the turn of President Ramaphosa, Zimbabweans expressed their unhappiness about recent events in the country.
Your Excellency, heads of state and government, and former heads of state.
Hello. Comrades, can we allow His Excellency to deliver his speech? Comrades.
And the President used the opportunity to apologize for what had happened.
I stand before you as a fellow African to express my regret and to apologize for what has happened in our country.
An apology well received.
President Mugabe was a friend of the African National Congress and the people of South Africa, and he stood by us during our darkest hour. He was unwavering in his support for our liberation struggle.
The man who took over the reins from Mugabe led the tributes.
May the world honor the late comrade Mugabe by ensuring that sanctions encumbering Zimbabwe are immediately removed. We say, give our country a rebirth and a new start. Remove sanctions now.
From Cuba, China, Russia, and the continent, they all paid their tributes.
Comrade Mugabe will be remembered as a Pan-Africanist and a great icon of African liberation who selflessly dedicated his life to the emancipation of Zimbabwe and Africa. He was a visionary leader and a relentless champion of African dignity.
But perhaps the insight into the late former statesman was delivered by the family. They described how he felt in his twilight years.
I must say, and I spent lots of time with him. Towards the end of his life, he was a sad man. Sad man.
Mugabe will be laid to rest at the Heroes Acre in the next 30 days. Mzondeli Mbeji, SABC News.
And to reflect further on the funeral service of the former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe and his legacy, I'm joined in studio by Kennedy Mandaza, the Zanu-PF Spokesperson in South Africa, and Tino Mambeu from Zimbabwe Exiles Forum. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure having you on the Globe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you and good evening.
Well, after today's service, I guess the reality has now sunken in for most Zimbabweans that the old man really is gone. What are your reflections on today's service? Tino?
Well, what we learned today is that there are serious attempts and machinations by the regime of Mr. Mnangagwa in several ways to try and de-Mugaberize the legacy of the former statesman. I think the grudge that we saw in 2017 where they moved him out of power by force, he has continued on today. How do I reach that conclusion? First and foremost, you would have known that Mugabe was very popular in the region and in Africa. And to justify the fact that he was taken out by force, you would have seen that the number of people that attended today's memorial service in terms of the capacity of that stadium, which normally seats 60,000 people, there I think about 10,000, 15,000 if I'm on the highest. So in a way, Zanu-PF has been trying to show to the world that this man who has died is no longer popular. But unfortunately, the man who is not popular is Mr. Mnangagwa himself, after coming through a coup and failing to garner the required amount of votes for him to proceed to become the president of Zimbabwe last year in July 2018. So this is what I have seen today, and this is what I have concluded. And you would also have seen that they have provided 2 days for body viewing from provinces to structures like that. Because if they had not done that, maybe Zanu-PF structures would have come to converge and would have booed the current president.
Kennedy?
Well, we would want to thank the masses of people that attended today. And we know that people are asking why is it that the numbers were as few as they think they were. But I think we need to understand and put it into proper perspective that Zimbabweans were given 2 days before today's funeral service to come and view the body of the dead former president. And they did it in their numbers on Thursday and Friday. And given the fact that today's service was primarily for the majority of the foreign dignitaries who were there, and those who could access the national stadium, including those who could afford to come again to the stadium. I think the numbers that we saw today, and we are quite grateful. We could have done better. The Zimbabweans could have come in their numbers. But we are also, I think, gratified by the fact that it was even noted in one of the speeches by one of the speakers that the number of people that welcomed the remains of the former president on his arrival was unprecedented. And in no way, therefore, can one conclude and say that the Zimbabweans did not bid farewell to the gallant son of Zimbabwe, gallant son of Africa. And we wouldn't want to say that what happened today has anything to do with the current sitting president, because today it was a day on which all Zimbabweans and Africans were supposed to pay tribute to an icon, to a liberator, to an educationist. And this is what happened today. It's not a day in which we would want to talk about the current president. We need to talk about the legacy of the former president. What is it that he did for Zimbabweans? What is it that he did for Africa? And it was clear from the majority of the speakers that spoke today that the former president did a lot, not only for Zimbabweans, but for Africans in the world over.
You know, Kennedy, in as much as we accept that we've got different and various ways of mourning, and Zimbabweans were mourning, at heart, and wherever they were, it wasn't actually necessary for them to go to the stadium. But we also should not shy away from the fact that from those who were interviewed, most of the millions of Zimbabweans who were interviewed were of the view that the reason they shunned the ceremony was because of the repression that marked Mugabe's rule.
To the contrary, from the interviews that I listened to, the majority of the people were even saying that the president should have lived even longer. And I think there are quite a number of issues that were raised in most of the interviews. One of them is the legacy of education, which he gave to the majority of the people. The land issue was raised in many of the interviews that took place, but not only on the basis of the interviews that took place. It is a reality that the former president, as an ardent educationist, a teacher in his own right, he made sure that he gave Zimbabweans an education. And he reunited the Zimbabweans with their land. Zimbabweans, amongst all the people on the continent, they are the only people that can rightfully say that they own land, they own their country. And it is as a result of the former president having taken it upon himself and the collective leadership of Zanu-PF to make sure that land was brought back to the rightful owners, who are the Zimbabweans. And we are beginning to see people on the continent beginning to emulate what the former president gave to the majority of the people in Zimbabwe. So that I beg to differ on the fact that the millions of Zimbabweans are saying that yes, there are certain issues that did not go well during the time of the former president. He is not infallible. He's human. So there are certain issues that admittedly may not have gone well during his time.
So you argue that the millions of Zimbabweans who were not at the funeral were actually happy with former President Robert Mugabe?
I really argue and say that it is true that the majority of Zimbabweans have a good story to tell about the former president. Okay. And wherever they are mourning. Okay.
Now, Tino, is it fair to determine somebody's legacy by the number of people who attend his funeral? And you also note that Zimbabwe is such a huge country and most of the Zimbabweans are impoverished. They cannot afford traveling all the way to the national stadium.
Look, I need to make certain things clear here regards the Mugabe legacy. It is common cause and it's known by everybody that Mugabe's leadership has been one of the most troublesome leaderships the region has ever seen. His leadership is characterized by 70% failure. But that having been said and done, Zanu-PF as a party is known worldwide. It's well recorded in history as a party that is able and beyond able to mobilize whenever they need to mobilize. If they have to send 1,000 people to Cape Town, they will. Last week, Mnangagwa brought 3 buses full to Cape Town at the World Economic Forum to try and show people that he is supported. But why did he fail today to mobilize thousands and thousands of people from rural areas to come and bid farewell to Mr. Mugabe? It's a fight for legacy. I have to make that clear. There is an ongoing feud between a dead man and a living man. The living man is Mr. Mnangagwa, who is trying to show the world that this man, he has no support anymore. If they had done according to how Zanu-PF always does it, they have the ability and the financial capacity, the financial muscle, and the intelligence to send 1,000 and thousands of buses to the rural areas to make sure that people come to Harare. Harare has never been a Zanu-PF stronghold. That is known and recorded in history. It's an MDC stronghold. So whenever you see masses in Harare, as you have been seeing during campaign times, it's because they've been buzzed from somewhere. But it's fishy when they do not buzz people to come and say goodbye to Mr. Mugabe when that occasion is happening in time. So I'm giving you a school of thought that says there is a feud between Mr. Mnangagwa and the dead Robert. But it does not end there. Remember, the family had said, this man doesn't want to be buried at the Heroes Acre. Will you have a Heroes Acre in Zimbabwe that does not have the body of Robert Mugabe? Will it work? It will not work. So what he is faced with is a very, very difficult scenario, himself as the president, to say, if Mugabe is not at the Heroes Acre, then Mr. Nkomo's kids will perhaps have to apply for the exhumation of Mr. Nkomo, because everything to do with the Heroes Acre hangs around the name of President Mugabe. I'm giving you another second school of thought there. So what does he do? He goes to try and betray, to try and speak to the family and say, I'm going to put a shrine. They call it, others, if you heard that, they call it a mausoleum. Yes, I call it a shrine, others call it a museum. At the Heroes Acre, why does he have to go and buy the permission of the family to lay Mr. Mugabe, who said, no. These people have taken me out of power by force. They've made me a laughing stock. We did some of these decisions, we did them together. And even the man who has taken me out of power is the chief enforcer of my policies. He is the man who was getting the intelligence. He is the man who knew everything that we were doing, and now he's standing around me. He cannot pontificate on my funeral. He cannot be the man to lay me on the Heroes Acre. I don't want to go there. It's a den of criminals. So they then say to the family, we are going to make a museum for him. We'll build a nice structure for him here so that the family at least can give Mr. Mnangagwa what he wanted. Then he got it. The burial is going to happen in 30 days. So here is a school of thought. Leave all the other things that are on the periphery. They are not important. What is important is the fight between ED and Mugabe. Now Mugabe has lost because his family, because they for the past 40 years, they lived in mansions. Mr. Mugabe lived in a mansion. They love good things. So they've been promised a good mausoleum where Mugabe will be resting. So they said, no, he can be buried at the Heroes Acre. That's unfair. at the end of the day. They forget that to
But
build...
contrary to what you're saying, there's this popular narrative that's been doing the rounds that Mr. Mugabe has now unified Zimbabweans in his death. I mean, who would have thought that Grace Mugabe and President Emerson Mnangagwa would be in the same space? Who would have thought that there would be Xavier Kasukuwere would be in the same space as Grace Mugabe and Emerson Mnangagwa, considering what had happened a few months ago?
Simpiwe, we have got to realize the power of Mugabe. The power of Mugabe continues to live on right now. He said that you do not have to bury me at the Heroes Acre. The biggest loser under those circumstances is ED. If the founder of the Heroes Acre cannot be buried there, who else can be buried there? Everybody that is lying there would have to be exhumed because Mugabe is no longer there. So he was faced with a very, very serious task of trying to negotiate the burial of a man. Do you know how long it has
I want us to interrogate the issue of the unity that's been brought about by the death of Mr. Mugabe. We saw thousands of Zimbabweans lining up the streets of Zimbabwe, welcoming the body from Singapore. And we also saw the MDC itself postponing its anniversary rally in honor of Robert Mugabe.
I want to give you something maybe that you always overlook, and some fellow Zanu-PF guys, they always overlook. When the MDC and all civil society said Mugabe must go, we never said Mugabe must die. It was Mugabe must go. Now that Mugabe has died, should we not mourn him? We mourn him because he has died. If a witch is in your village and they died, you go and make a birthday for a child. Do you not mourn witches in your village? Are there no known witches in villages that continue to die now and they are mourned? So Mr. Mugabe has died. It is African, it is Ubuntu to go and say goodbye, Mr. Mugabe. We have said he must leave power. We have never said Mugabe must die. If we wanted Mugabe to die, we would have taken up arms and killed him. That's not what we did. We went to the ballot. We campaigned. We looked for votes. We spoke about it.
Okay. Now, Kennedy, you heard Tino disputing the fact that Robert Mugabe has now unified Zimbabweans in death, disputing the popular narrative all the world over that unity is sort of prevailing in Zimbabwe. What do you think? What do you make of this?
You see, it's so sad that at times we come and sit here and try to give a narrative that seek to suit certain agendas. What is clear and sound, which the majority of the people have seen, is what have been obtaining in Zimbabwe as of now. We can't go in and we can't come here and claim and say we know what has been happening in Singapore where the former president was. We can't come and sit here and claim to know what has been happening during the course of the negotiations that have been taking place. What we know is what have been clarified by those that were speaking on behalf of the family and on behalf of government. The other issues that are being raised by Tino here are neither here nor there. He was never there where all these issues that he's claiming that he knows were taking place. But most importantly, the issues that you are raising are very fundamental, and they are the issues that of things that have happened in Zimbabwe. We have seen the majority of Zimbabweans converging together to mourn their former president. And not only Zanu-PF supporters, but also MDC and other members of other political organizations, they have been there to mourn the president. That's the unity that we want in Zimbabwe. That is the unity that the former president used to preach. That is the kind of unity that we also want in Zimbabwe, not only in Zimbabwe, but also in Africa, where regardless of our political differences, we can unite on a particular issue and push that particular agenda together. And this is what has happened. And President Mugabe, because he was a unifier, and we saw it during the Unity Accord of 1987. He unified the Zimbabweans, and as we speak right now, regardless of the challenges that we see in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe remains a united people, regardless of the situations and the challenges that they have. And over and above that, they have this the virtues which they've inculcated from the former president, that of hard working. And we cannot take away from that. And we have so
but
many...
that unity, Kennedy, does not find expression in the organization of this particular funeral service between the Zanu-PF, between the Mugabe family and the government. I mean, do you accept that it caused immense embarrassment to both the Zanu-PF and the Mugabe family, the fact that there was confusion with regards to where he will be buried?
I wouldn't say that there was any confusion. Ordinarily, when a leader has died, what happens is that the political party sees that to confer the hero status of the person who would have died. And that is exactly what the Zanu-PF did. But
that's contrary to what the family has expressed, saying that Mr. Mugabe did not want to be buried at Heroes Acre.
Conferring hero status and where one has to go and be buried is something else. After you have done the conferment...
And respecting the wish of the dead is also one important issue.
Sure, it's very true. But at the same time, the decision to have the former president buried at Heroes Acre is not a decision that was taken by the government. If you heard from Leo Mugabe, who was the spokesman of the Mugabe family, said that it is a decision that has been reached by the chiefs. There were three groups of people that were taking part in these negotiations.
In my understanding, it was in reaction to the fact that the government had imposed that Mr. Mugabe will be buried at the Heroes Acre, much to the chagrin and much to the disagreement of the family.
What the government had done, had come up with a program. They had not even indicated where the former president was going to be buried. And the current president was very clear. He said that we would listen to the wishes of the family of the former president. And that is exactly what they did. And they followed step by step what the family of the former president was deciding in their meetings. And as we speak,
but his wish was he did not want to be buried at Heroes Acre, and the government pontificating, I mean, the very same person who overthrew him pontificating over his funeral.
I wouldn't say that that wasn't his wish or that was his wish, because I was not privy to what is said to have been his wish. All what we hear are statements that have come out of the social media space, that this is what the president had wished. And we have not even heard any member of the Mugabe family coming out and saying that this is what the former president had wished to be done after his death. This is what has been traded on the social media space. The spokesperson of the former president came in to give an indication of the program that was supposed to be taken and the discussions that were going on until finally it was given on where the former president is going to be buried.
But Leo Mugabe did accept that the confusion with regards to that is regretted and shouldn't have happened.
Sure, he said that. But he did not say that if he said that the confusion was not that the government had said, let us bury him at Heroes Acre. The government did not say that.
Okay.
The government was still waiting for a decision that had to come from the family of the former president. In their engagement, understandably, probably, they intimated that this is the tradition, because there has been a tradition that people given a hero status, they are supposed to be buried at the Heroes Acre. So that intimation could have been made, but the final decision was supposed to be taken by the family, and the family did so with the assistance of the chiefs of the area where the former president comes from.
So now my understanding of your argument is that you will disregard what the family has said with regards to expressing Mugabe's wish to be buried, not to be buried at Heroes Acre, because what's being said is being said on social media, hence you will disregard that. Do you know what's your views?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying that whatever wish the president would had said, if communicated through the family, that is going to be followed. And the current president said it very categorical.
All right. Tino?
I need to help this, my fellow Zimbabwean brother here. There are things that are as clear as the sky. You cannot take away the fact that Mr. Mugabe was deposed from power, and after he was deposed from power, he said that he's not going to want anything to do with Zanu-PF. I think SABC was there. He declared his allegiance to MDC led by Nelson Chamisa, even urging people to go and vote for Mr. Nelson Chamisa. If you bury Mr. Mugabe there, as you are going to do, as you are willing to do after buying the family with the museum, you are going against the wish of the dead.
Zanu-PF bought the family with a mausoleum. Do you agree, Kennedy?
I think it is him who needs to be corrected. It is him who needs to be corrected. Like I've said already, the decision for the former president to be buried at the National Heroes Acre comes from the family.
Okay.
And in conjunction or in consultation with the chiefs and the government, they've decided to come up with a shrine. And that is where the former president is going to be built. It has nothing to do with buying the family of the Mugabe for him to be buried there.
Right.
It's nothing to do with that.
Just in wrapping, Tino, I guess this opens up the conversation of respecting the wishes of the dead, no matter what status you held in society before you died.
Zanu-PF was supposed to let Mr. Mugabe go to Zimba and rest there. As he has said that they are putting up a shrine. They are putting up a, what did you call it? A shrine.
Shrine, yeah.
You know, it's some kind of cultism. It doesn't really make sense. So you begin to ask yourself as to why would they go to those lengths? And you know those shrines, they are very expensive. You don't just do them out of 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents. It's unfortunate that in this day and age when Zimbabweans cannot even apply for a passport, there is no passport making paper, there is no fuel, there is inflation that is rife all over. It's just unfortunate that they want to spend.
We don't have much time, unfortunately. We saw President Cyril Ramaphosa being booed when he took to the podium, and you know, everybody calmed down when he apologized for the xenophobic attacks. What's your thoughts on this?
Mr. Ramaphosa is always a late comer. Even here in South Africa, he came in very late. Mr. Julius Malema had already indicated that there was a need for an apology. So what he should have done is to start his speech by apologizing. At the end of the day, South Africa is getting isolated. The few friends that it has will dwindle. You would have seen that certain teams didn't want to play football with the South African team. So all those are indicators to an extent that South Africa is getting isolated. Okay. Mr. Ramaphosa must recheck his advisory team in the region and be in touch with the masses. The leaders in general of SADC are failing to understand the winds and to dip their political thermometers so that they can get correct readings.
Now, Kennedy, please be as brief as you possibly can. I mean, do you think that this is an indication that the whole world, particularly the African continent, is angry at South Africa and is increasingly isolating South Africa?
Surely everyone is condemning xenophobia. And the current president of South Africa should also take the lead in making sure that he condemns the xenophobia currently taking place in South Africa. And what has happened is not an isolated incident. There are other incidents that have been happening across the continent, but not necessarily on the current president, but on anything to do with South Africa. And it is regrettable that we had to go to that length in order to address the issue of xenophobia.
Right. Gentlemen, we can't thank you enough. We always appreciate your thoughts and your inputs and for visiting us on the globe.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was Tino Mambeu from the Zimbabwe Exiles Forum, and as well as Kennedy Mandaza, Zanu-PF spokesperson in South Africa. It's a wrap for now. We'll have more in a moment.